So, Paulo, given the increasing sophistication of cyber threats, what are the most critical emergent technology and methodologies that you believe that organizations should adopt and enhance in their current situation?
Yeah, it really depends on the maturity level of the companies and the organizations. But one thing that we usually recommend for companies is really to take a two-ways approach. In one way, on a more immediate approach, to take some tactical technologies, which will increase immediately, significantly, what we call cyber resilience. And within those, we usually recommend to adopt multi-factor authentication. Almost every attack that we see out there, including in Portugal, comes from compromised certificates. And usually those come from using just one factor to authenticate employees and partners. So we really recommend companies to adopt a second factor authentication. It might be a token, it might be something else, but just one factor is not really enough. Another one, which is to adopt some of the industry new trend, which is to have a more zero trust approach, meaning never trust, always verify, which means that whatever users want to access, whatever the customers want to access, you should always verify if it is really that customer, that employee, that partner that wants to access information. Another topic which is really hot at the moment, which is to adopt as well multi-level backups. So if by the end of the day you really are attacked, you have to have some backup of your information. Usually companies have a kind of geographical redundancy approach, which is good. Nowadays companies are also coming with a third site. And the good thing is you should have an air gap in between those. Otherwise, attackers can go to one and to the other and to the next. So having multiple levels. So this is probably the main factors for the tactical action. And then on a more timely approach, companies really need to have a structural cybersecurity strategy and plan. That takes time. Takes a long time, multiple years, until you have the first results. And when companies go that way, and they have already the maturity to go that way, they should adopt more real-time detection. And that can be achieved by several ways. One is really to adopt automation, which everyone is trying to come up with. A second, and probably the most important, is really to spread and to distribute the cyber defenses towards the edge of the attack surface, meaning to the point of sales, to the warehouses, and that way, both they are reducing latency on detecting, and they are also putting defenses on the edge, which mean that they really protect their assets on real time. So this is basically what companies should do, or is what we see out there.
No. So what do you believe are some of the strategies that you have been found most effective enhancing cybersecurity awareness within employees and within organizations?
Also a very hot topic, I would say. Awareness and security posture is really a critical point in whatever strategy. It has to be really at the center. Well, what we saw in the last years and what we recommend is really to also have a different approach to different employee types, meaning for the very skilled like developers, we really need to get to the best practice of developing code. So this is really an hardening of security in the code. So this is one approach. Companies should take a lot of effort on that respect to really train those developers, not just on the technical side of the company, as well on the marketing and product part. So really adopt the best strategies. For the majority of the employees, where in the past companies had a huge effort, I guess that now we should have a better balanced approach in between taking technical measures, like when we adopt two-factor authentication, probably we can ease some of the training on how to use the passwords, because companies are not exposed any longer. So they should go to more social engineering techniques and try to make sure that employees are aware of those and can react and can go to the ITs and share with them what's going on. So, but it's basically now a challenge because on one way you have the high skilled people and technicians and technical teams. On the other side you have the rest of the company, which is absolutely critical. But just to emphasize, is really a hot topic, and companies should put as much effort as possible on that.
Perfect. Thank you. So we mentioned that there's a multi-step approach to address cybersecurity. So what do you think are the most significant challenges that organizations have integrating this multiple parts of technology, people, and processes in cybersecurity?
First of all, putting those three pillars together is part of any transformation process, and this is always a challenge. In cybersecurity, in that respect, is no different. I guess that there is one difference, which makes it really relevant, and once again, depending on the starting point and on the maturity of the organization, which is if one company is already has quite mature processes, what we call playbooks on security, that company might take an approach of having a lead on processes and adopt automation. So build more technology levels, leveraging on those playbooks, which if they are already mature, this is for one type of company. If in the gap analysis, companies believe that the processes are not so resilient and not so mature still, they can take a more technological lead approach, meaning that when they go to acquire a new technology, instead of looking just for the technology as such, they are looking to buy or to adopt a completely new practice. So they take the technology, they take the off-the-shelf processes that technology brings with it. They take the opportunity to reskill the employees, once again training, and to build talent in the talent pool. So this is another approach. So if we really have to start fresh, it's probably better to take this approach of buying a practice instead of trying to buy a technology and then mix it with the existing processes. For the companies which are more advanced and they have already some mature processes and some mature technology in place, or at least part of it, they can take the opportunity to really put more leverage on building the talent pool, the skills, which by no doubt is probably the biggest challenge organizations have today. The talent overall is an issue, is a challenge. In cybersecurity is a priority, I would say. Number one priority is to find skilled people, or to train them, or to give them the opportunities to grow within the organization.
So we talked a lot about cybersecurity. So in your opinion, what are the key cybersecurity threats that organizations and managers should be aware of, and what are more challenging for their current cybersecurity strategies?
When we look into the overall cybersecurity purpose of protecting information, the organization's information, and when we look on the other side, what the adversaries are trying to do, they do exactly the opposite, so trying to disrupt and breach information in many different ways. I guess the first and foremost important thing that executives should have is a gap analysis, or at least it should not be probably very detailed, because that will take a very long time to get, but to adopt a reference framework, and after looking through those lenses to the existing landscape, to the ecosystem, to get a gap analysis, to really start building a strategy. That's probably the step number one. Is really, even if organizations already have a strategy in place, I guess it is worth zooming out and see, okay, let's have here a more transversal and a more horizontal approach for a couple of months, just to have a good gap analysis. And then based on that, based on the willingness to take risks or willingness to invest or ability to invest on the regulatory landscape, on the sector. And there are sectors now which are really, really with a huge regulatory pressure, so they have to act based on that. Then we should come up with a plan. And then once again, going back to the first question, try to balance the real tough actions, structural actions, which will take quite a long time, with some tactical ones which will give them some results on the short term. So this is really the challenge, is to not spend 2 to 3 years doing a study, and hopefully will not be compromised during that period, but much companies are compromised during those periods. And instead of that, trying to balance more the structural actions and the structural measures with the more tactical ones.
Paulo, with your experience in so many industries and B2B operations, what do you think and feel that from a CEO and management perspective, what makes them in cybersecurity issues, make them sleep poorly at night?
I would say many things, but trying to focus on the main ones. Once again, everything goes back to information. And depending on the industry, as you said, or on the business, the intersection between cybersecurity and privacy is really an issue. Organizations in the core business, in the core mission, have to protect their customers' information. So that's why we come up to the job each day. So this is one of the topics, is the privacy interception with cybersecurity. So everyone sees every once in a while in the news some information that has been leaked. So this is clearly one topic that the top management is putting a lot of effort and a lot of investment, to be honest. This is topic number one. Everything that has to do with reputation. So even if it's not customer information that is leaked, if you are not able to operate for on a critical period, so reputation is probably also on the top of the list. And I would say that for the top management now, regulation is also coming into the. I mean, it always have been, because every organization, in spite of the sector, has some regulatory framework to oblige to, but now these frameworks are becoming much more pervasive. Obligations, requirements are really growing, especially in the EU, with this new tsunami of regulatory frameworks. So I would say that the combination of these three, privacy, reputation, and compliance, on what it respects to keep the business operating, is probably the three things that might do that.
So, Paulo, if you had 3 pieces of advice for managers and CEOs regarding cybersecurity, what would be your number 3?
Tough to choose 3, but I would say that taking into account the average maturity level of the organizations these days, I would choose to really look after the cybersecurity governance, to make sure that there is a governance in place which really looks after all the aspects that go across the business and across the organization, across the corporation, in respect to cybersecurity. A second is to make sure that governance translates into an architecture, that there is a plan or architecture which can be followed, usually multi-year plan. And third is really to make sure that each couple of years the cybersecurity strategy is looked after, and if it stays updated, great. If it not, to update it, because this is really a very dynamic industry, sector, landscape, ecosystem. So having a strategy is good, but if you don't really update that strategy quite often, very easily it might become outdated which after the initial effort, it's going to be a pity. So